Hey, it's another Thursday night, and this is Real Monsters. I'm SK Barrett, your host. Joining me is the ever lovely and talented Wes Hobrick,
Hello, hello, hello.
calling
Yep.
you from the People's Republic of Washington.
Yeah, in the people's septic tank of Illinois here. But you know how that goes.
I'm really puzzled by something.
What's that?
Um, I thought they outlawed guns in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, they definitely did.
So how are all these people getting shot?
Oh, my. If only they understood black markets. But yeah, it's probably willful misunderstanding, but man. Yeah, thankfully, though, I am far enough away from there. I'm about 5 hours to the southwest of Chicago. Um, you know, their police too, man. It's sickening if you look into the history. The Guardian in like I think 2013 or 2014
Yeah.
did a couple of exposés on the Chicago PD literally running black sites in industrial buildings
Black
where they
sites for what?
where they would literally take people they wanted to question, they would handcuff them to
Oh,
radiators for hours on end. They would beat a good majority of them, and they would be denied access to counsel.
or
I mean,
anything else.
yeah. I mean, a
Well,
black
it's
site.
it's not exact, it's I mean, that's horrible and awful and yet not really surprising.
Oh, not at all with the history of Chicago, but yeah. I mean, it's basically just like a black site that the CIA would keep in I don't know Siberia, but it's in the Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, I live in a part of the Seattle area that has a huge mental barrier. So there's a there's a, there's a topographic well, there's a big lake between me and downtown Seattle where the people have taken over part of the city.
Oh wow.
And but more than and there are two bridges that cross it. But more
Mm-hmm.
than a physical barrier, it represents a mental barrier. Such a bizarre thing because when I have want to get together with people who live downtown and say, "Hey, come on over here," and they're like, "Nah, you come over here." Every time,
Huh.
and it's true for everybody. Nobody from Seattle wants to come over here. They always want people from over here to go into Seattle every
Wow.
time.
Huh.
So I'm not too worried about them coming across the bridge because they just don't like to do it.
Interesting. That's a
They'll go
curious
north and
phenomenon.
they'll go south, but they do not want to go east.
Yeah, I mean the only real bridge here that people cross is the one into Missouri to buy cheaper booze, cigarettes, and fuel. They have one of the lowest tax rates on that in the entire country. So, yeah, that's competition for you.
Yeah. Yeah, things are getting a little wild. I mean, it's almost to the point where we could do this show on current events.
Yeah, we could. I mean, some of the news from this past week. I mean, they caught the guy who set fire to the police department. The precinct number was a 3 or 5, one of them, in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, this guy, he's a white guy. He doesn't not look like a protester at all. Uh, so make what you will of that. And that story, like all of these, is on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Real Monsters Podcast. But I think the one that made me jump out of my skin most out of all the stories
Yeah.
was the guy who stuck a phone charger up his penis, 2 feet long, too.
I saw the x-ray and it was like the whole thing
Yeah,
was in his bladder.
yep, the entire thing in there. That X-ray
Uh, why?
totally reminded me of Albert Fish and
Oh, that's
his
something he would
notorious
do.
X-ray. Yeah. Apparently, this guy went into the hospital complaining of really bad pain down there, and
No.
and he told the doctors, I guess, that he ate a pair of earbuds. I
That's
don't know
not
if
how
he
that
told them
works.
that because he was embarrassed about what really happened or what. But
Oh, very likely.
yeah, when they didn't find anything after giving him a laxative and scoping him, they did surgery. So,
Well, they would have had to anyway. There's no way that thing was coming out the way it went in.
yeah, no way whatsoever. Um,
Nor would he have wanted it to.
no, that would be painful.
But from my understanding, people lie to doctors and nurses all the fucking time.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely. The only thing that would be even comparable to that are those little parasitic fish that sometimes swim up your stream of pee in the Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't,
leeches will do that too.
yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long those fish are, though. Like the kangaroo, I think is the main
Yeah.
one. But,
God, how creepy would that be?
oh man, that'd be so painful. They have
Well, and
little
then it would be
spikes that
swimming
they let
around
out.
in there for ages, right?
Oh yeah, yep. And then you have, of course, Chad Daybell, the husband of Lori Vallow, is arrested as the FBI searches his Idaho property. They found the bodies of their two children on that. So,
This is the couple who goes, gosh, I don't know where they are. Let's go to Hawaii.
yeah. Yep, that's the same ones
And
there.
what city was this in?
Uh, man, I'm gonna
Was
have
it
to look
Rexburg
again.
or Idaho Falls?
I want to say it was Idaho Falls, but let me look a little closer here. Oh no, it is Rexburg. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. That is from 95.7 KEZJ.
I probably
Idaho
have cousins in
News.
that town. I got cousins all over Hellengun in eastern Idaho.
Yeah.
One of my cousins was married to the chief of police of Idaho Falls for many years. I think he's retired now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. How many people are in that city?
Idaho
Idaho
Falls?
Falls. Yeah.
I don't know. I want to say about 75,000,
Oh wow. That's one
maybe.
state I do not know much about.
There's
So.
not much to know.
well, yeah,
There's
and then
there's some good fishing in places. There's some good skiing in places. There's a lot of sagebrush and potatoes.
yeah, that, and I hear there's some white supremacists that like to gather in that state
Yeah,
too. But I
yeah.
don't know.
I
Oh,
do they still? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe Ruby Ridge kind of got them to move, but I don't know. Um, oh, and then just the last item, they filed charges in the murder of retired St. Louis police captain David Dorn. So,
Yeah, they caught that motherfucker.
yeah, absolutely. That was so sad. But
That was pretty cold too. I mean, it seemed completely. I mean, not that all of the deaths have not been pointless, but that one seemed especially pointless to me.
yeah, I mean, the guy was just at a pawn shop in St. Louis. But
Well, it was his friend's pawn shop. He was helping him
yeah,
out.
yeah, helping him with the TV, wasn't he?
No,
Like
no, he was
carrying it or
no.
something?
I thought he was helping protect it.
Oh,
It
oh
was his
yeah, that
buddy's
could.
shop, and he was there to help protect it, and they killed him for it.
I tell you, it's sad with St. Louis, man. I love that city so much. I know it like the back of my hand,
Yeah.
but it's been getting more and more violent there as Chicago has been getting more and more violent. I mean, you know how they say
Well, it's
shit
one of
runs
the
downhill?
it's one of the top murder cities in the country.
Yeah, yeah. But it gets a lot of the crap from Chicago too. People flee
Oh,
from there down I-55 into St. Louis. So it's sad, really is. But that is all I have in the way of news.
okay. We got a weird one for you today, people. Oh my
We
God.
sure do.
And
The
there's
unmaking of an American myth.
All right. So, yeah, I do want to address this from the mythology standpoint and compare, you know, facts to the myth.
Yes.
Because I admit, this guy was kind of a legend to me in a little ways. Because
Mhm.
looked to me like this guy was just fed up with the harassment from his local government, and he went on a rampage.
Yeah, and to a degree, that is valid when you look at the facts.
Yeah.
Because there's some stuff that they did that, yeah, he had a legitimate beef with certain parts of it,
Okay.
but with a lot of it, it just doesn't stand up to what went down. But yeah, I mean, that's been co-opted for a lot of people too. They sort of take the facts that they want out of it, and then they neglect a lot of the rest too. And that's the media for you in a lot of ways as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But
I don't like the media. I don't have
mhm.
any respect for the media. I think they're lying punks at best, incompetent most of the time, and will
Well,
and
yeah,
will, fucking make shit up or lie to advance their point of view.
I think there's good and ethical journalists out there. Um, I hesitate to, lump them all in one bag as being shitty because I do know plenty
I,
who aren't.
well,
But
that's congratulations because I don't. I mean, of course, there's going to be good ones and bad ones, just like in anything.
but
Yeah.
yeah. And another point that we should stress before getting too far into it, one thing that I was not able to find much on was Marvin Heemeyer's early life.
Hmm.
There just isn't much out there as
Well, that's
far as I
news.
could tell about that. But we do know he was born in South Dakota in 1951 on a family farm. In fact, I think we have a picture that he took a selfie where he's in front of a tractor. That is at the family farm. And sort of early on in his life, doing a lot of the farm work, he realized he had a knack for, welding engines, motors, and any kind of mechanical shit.
I don't think we have
And,
that picture.
oh, I thought I
I see.
sent
Oh, I
that.
see. The tractor one. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Um, and when he later opened up a muffler shop, one illustration with that was he could fix just about anything wrong with the muffler in 20 minutes flat. I mean, this guy, he knows his stuff. But he entered the
20
Air
minutes.
Force. Yeah, 20 minutes. 20 minutes with just about anything wrong with it, he could fix it.
Wow.
Is what my sources said. And these were people who knew him well. Um, He was stationed in Colorado with the Air Force in the 70s into the 80s, and he ends up deciding to stay there. And he moves to the town of Grand Lake, which is about 16 minutes outside of the town that we're going to be talking the majority of this about, Granby, Colorado. Um,
Granby. I don't.
yep.
how do I not know this town? Maybe I
I think
maybe I do.
I
Uh,
think I included a map
you did
somewhere.
not.
I
Damn it.
didn't? Oh,
What the hell,
I thought
man?
I sent that one. My apologies. Um, it's about, I want to say it is south southwest, or no, north northwest of Denver is about where it is. It's in the Rockies, basically. Um, and to get an idea of the sort of town it was, I'm
Oh, I
finding my
see.
source here.
Looking at it. Yeah, it's north of Breckenridge.
Yes, it is where it is.
So
But to get it,
kind of between Breckenridge and Estes Park. For all of you who are intimately familiar with the small towns of Colorado.
Estes Park, by the way, is also where Stephen King stayed in the Stanley Hotel and wrote The Shining. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
my
also,
brother worked there as a young man as a waiter over a summer.
oh, really?
Yeah, a singing
Wow.
waiter.
At the Stanley, huh? Interesting. But yeah, my cousin actually lives not too far from Estes Park too. But yeah, there's a pretty good article out there called "The Dark Side of Paradise" by Colorado Central Magazine. That kind of it gets into a lot of detail of the kind of town that Granby is. What they called it was a service center and bedroom for those who sell scenery, snow, and rubber tomahawks to tourists. um,
Very much a tourist town then.
yeah, I mean, it started off as a ranch town, but it
Sure.
hadn't been a ranch town for about 50 years before this. And calling it one at that time would be just like calling Denver a large ranch town.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, but there's other people from Sky High News, the local paper in Granby, which will become important again. They called it God's Country, dedicated to His Majesty the Tourist. Um, but it had quite the quote blue collar mentality. A gate avenue was the main street, and it had been looking tired in a last picture show sort of way. So
Sure.
town officials wanted to borrow money to, quote, gussy it up. And before they wanted to do this, there was about 6,000 acres that had recently been annexed into Granby, where vacation homes and the high tax bracket that comes with them were going to go. So that also in turn promised solid demand for new businesses, like the new grocer that was going up. But the residents voted it down. I mean, maybe they had good reason for that, I'm not sure. But it kind of gives you an idea of the mentality
They
there.
voted down a new grocery store.
Now, they voted down borrowing the money
Oh.
uh, to beautify the main
Oh.
street.
Oh, I see. Well, you know
Yeah.
what's interesting is we have a town like that here in Washington. Uh,
Which one is that?
It's called Leavenworth, just like the town
Oh, wow.
prison. It's up in the
Yeah.
mountains or on the edge of the mountains on the eastern slope. And it was
Mhm.
a logging slash mining town and was, failing. Much smaller than Granby, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the same kind of idea. Let's spruce it up and get some tourists in here. Only they did it.
Oh, wow.
And
How'd it go for him?
they turned it into a little Bavarian looking town. And they get all kinds of people in there. And they have a huge Oktoberfest and all kinds of shit going on. And it really paid off for them. So these guys were idiots.
Well, it's great that it went well for him there.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, and the population of Granby is about 2,200
Oh,
in the
okay.
time that we're going to be talking about. Um, So yeah, Heemeyer moves to Grand Lake and he gets a little cabin. He also owned several businesses in Boulder and Denver. What he called it in his audio tapes, the exact quote from him was champagne income with a beer keg, is what he said. Um, but he was also working at a muffler shop in Granby during this time, and he worked his way up to where he bought the owner out, and he
Okay.
went from there. Um, oh, and by the way, we will be putting the full audio tapes on our site on Facebook. Um, the Sky High News again, they hosted it. There's about 3 hours of them, of this manifesto that he sort of made in the April before he went on his rampage with Killdozer in 2004. And then he postmarked it the day before to send to his brother. So
Wow.
that's how those came about. And most of the quotes from Heemeyer that I'm going to be saying here were from those tapes. I listened to a good majority of them. But friends of his said, he cared about his craft. He did great work. And, he had a reputation for being the best welder around. But there was an interesting story that I dug up, and I'm looking for the woman's name again. They had what could only be described as a bit of a scrape with Granby. They took their muffler in, and apparently he did just shitty work on it.
Really?
And yeah, and they said, "We want our money back." And he said no throughout all of that. And I was just looking for my note on it because it was in a newspaper article.
Did he really do a shitty job, or were they just trying to get a freebie?
I'm pretty sure that he did a bad job on it, which
Okay.
is out of character for him.
Right. That's why I was asking, right?
Yeah. Um, well, maybe we can come back to that. I'm still flipping through here. I
That's
should
okay.
have, because it was way out of character, and they ended up actually him giving the money back to an intermediary, who in turn gave it to them, because apparently this guy Heemeyer also threatened the husband during all this,
Oh,
and this was way before he went on his rampage too.
but maybe it was a little foreshadowing, maybe?
It very well could be. It most certainly could be. Um, but yeah, back to where we were with the main part of that. Heemeyer said about his childhood, he said, "I was a poor person for most of my life." And it really strikes you throughout listening to the good majority of these tapes,
Yeah.
because he invokes God a insane amount of time.
Hmm.
And I use that descriptor for a reason. I think it might have contributed to his state of mind. Because to me, the amount of time that he talked about God on there
Yeah.
was in the realm of somebody who has something like temporal lobe epilepsy or just delusions of grandeur, which we'll get into.
Gotcha.
Um, so he Heemeyer's girlfriend, Trisha McDonald, he was old school with me. She called him larger than life. I felt safe with him. He was wonderful to me. They had many road trips, and she said there was never a dull moment. Um, and every Thursday, Heemeyer had a group where he and a bunch of guys would just take the day off and go ride snowmobiles all around up there in the mountains. Um, and there was one guy in that group who called Heemeyer his best friend and his mentor. Um, but
Yeah, yeah,
still,
snowmobiling, you don't have to get far out of the city to before snowmobiling is a big time thing. Um, and in a lot
absolutely.
of places, it's a serious mode of transportation during certain times of the year.
Oh yeah, and it's not uncommon in winter out there to see 2 weeks straight of temperatures below 10 degrees too.
Right. And
Um,
yeah, and during storms and stuff, people will ride up and down the streets in their snow machines.
yeah, and that was a big hobby for Heemeyer. I mean, he had several of them that were souped up, and he also souped up his truck's engine to where it had about 400 horsepower. But um,
Yeah, and if
this
you
is
if you've never driven a snow machine before, you got to try it. It's a lot of fun.
I haven't. I should. But yeah, this is where we get into the government selling a parcel of land in Granby at auction, and
Okay.
people are bidding on it.
Okay.
And Heemeyer, he gives a $42,000 bid, and he ends up walking away with it.
All right.
Now, another guy that's going to be pivotal to this story, Cody Dochev, and his financier were at the original auction. And according to Heemeyer, they got into it, and his words were he gave me a quote tongue lashing for 10 minutes because he lost it. Now, this is where I don't know if I
Um.
believe him. To be honest, I don't believe him, and we'll see reasons why as we go on through that. But this bid, where Heemeyer started his muffler business on this land,
Yeah.
he thought that nobody else even putting in a bid on it was proof that God wanted him to use it for this purpose
Ah.
later on when he concocted his plan in 2001. Because this was about
Oh man.
1992 when he bought it.
So much trouble in this world comes from people who think God's telling them what to do, that they
Yeah,
are divinely um, motivated,
yeah.
that God's on their side and is, clearing the way for them to do whatever it is that they think God wants them to do. That is a source of so much agony in the world.
Oh, I completely agree. And Heemeyer definitely fit that bill if you look at his own words on all this. And personally, I think he fit it to an insane level. But um, yeah, Heemeyer's former friend, he said, quote, I don't like the way the county's run. It's a good old boys club, which we'll get into more on that
Well,
here in a minute too. But yeah,
that's entirely possible.
yeah.
Local
Like I said,
governments,
some of it
local
was legit.
governments tend to be that way. There's no question
Oh,
about it.
oh, absolutely. Um, but yeah, I mean, he said at this auction that Dochev got in his face for about 10 minutes, but yeah, I don't believe him on that. And there's no evidence that says that he did, in fact, do that. Um,
Well,
but
there's also a thing where some people will interpret really innocuous comments as being attacks on them personally.
mm-hmm,
You see it all the time. Somebody will go, "Can you believe what they said?" And you're like, "What? There was nothing," and they feel completely personally attacked. Um, and
mm-hmm.
that's a very common thing, actually.
Oh, yeah, but the way that he painted this, it made him sound like that he was directly in his face. I mean, like
Hmm.
literally physically standing there berating him.
Well,
But
if he was that kind of a person, which you'd think there would be a lot of evidence of that kind of behavior prior to this.
mm-hmm,
I mean,
paranoid. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
paranoid and you know, some kind of lacking in self-worth, maybe?
Hmm. Yeah, weak ego, fragile ego.
Right, right.
But in the summer of 1992, Grand County wanted Heemeyer annexed into the water and sanitation district that they had, right?
Okay.
So he didn't want this. He had I kid you not, a cement mixer on his property that he was using as a septic tank.
You mean
So
storage tank?
basically, yeah. And the closest sewer line was pretty far from his property. Um, he would have had to have built a pretty long service line to hook in. An installation at that time would have ran about $60,000 to $80,000. And keep in mind, again, that's on a sewer line that he doesn't want. So he refuses. And he said in his tapes, quote, had they not done that, the outcome would have been completely different. Um, and this
So
is
here's one
when,
of the pictures of the property.
yes, and that actually traces the sewer line right there,
So it came
the
right
white
up.
on.
It came right up to his property. He just had to tap into it.
Basically, yeah.
Because that's a lot of times the expense of getting on a sewer line is reaching it. And this is like right there.
Oh, yeah, and it got even easier for him to fix this, but he still refused, as we'll see.
Ugh.
This gets into the first set of people on his who would be on his hit list when he did his rampage, the Thompson family. These guys, they came to Granby in 1978, and they're real salt of
Newcomers.
the well, not as newcomer as Heemeyer, but they were real salt of the earth people.
Okay.
You know, built themselves up and accumulated a good amount of money through that. You know, business owners. And Heemeyer said of them, quote, had they left me alone, things would be different.
Yeah.
But they were, you know, basically the establishment. Um, and
Finger
Heemeyer,
pointing is a common thread here I'm seeing.
yes, it is. And with the sewer thing, Heemeyer went on minding his own business. So what does the city do? They spot zoned the 2 acres directly south of Heemeyer's shop. And because apparently nobody protested it in 30 days, it was legal to do.
Is that building? So in this picture, we the little metal shed, the long rectangular silver shed, that's his shop.
Yes,
And the one we're talking
yes,
about is to the left of that with the trucks,
yes, yep,
which shows on the map as a transfer station.
yes, to the west of it. And that is when Cody Dochev, who we mentioned earlier, bought that property to the west.
Okay.
And Heemeyer thought at the time for revenge that he bought it.
Revenge
And
over what? Because,
I
oh,
don't know. This guy is just utterly delusional. But summer of 1999, there's public hearings that start about all of this. And council member Dick Brody is the acting mayor at them. And that's because the mayor and the mayor pro temp had conflicts of interest with what was going on with Marvin, with the sewer, and all of that. And Heemeyer was pretty good at winning the crowd over to his view that the cement plant that Dochev wanted to build on that property
hmm
would cause dust, noise, traffic, and problems with the water supply.
well, that's what construction does.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
temporary.
yeah. And it ended up to the point where the council basically said, yeah, it's going to cause dust, but frankly, Marv, your property is pretty dirty to begin with. So,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
I
The
mean,
city,
I mean, it is not, there's nothing pristine about his place there.
no, no, it's a muffler shop. So, the city approved the plant with a host of conditions, like we were talking about.
Hmm.
And Heemeyer, he said at the time, I'm going to fight him all the way. And he was subsequently found guilty on a sewer violation, likely
As he
because
should
of that
be.
septic tank. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
A
This is
cement
valid.
truck is not a viable or legal septic system.
No, no, not at
It
all.
is just a big bowl.
Yep, basically. And what the city did there was they said you legally cannot use your property until the 400-foot line is hooked up. And this is per Judge Noriyuki. And he ended up deferring the judgment. So Heemeyer, he required an easement from Cody Dochev
Yeah.
to do this. And of course, Dochev
In
at the
order,
time wouldn't
right.
grant
So
it.
so he had the easement would have been to dig a trench to reach the existing sewer line.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
Not
and
not not to
because
not to not to get on and off his property, which a lot of easements are for, but just to dig a temporary trench, lay some pipe, and fill it back in.
yeah, yeah, but then you have the other factor here that he's pissed this guy off for several years now. He's burned the bridge.
Uh-oh.
So of course the chef flips him the middle finger. And I can't blame him one bit for that.
Right.
Um
Because
yeah,
so there are in real estate law, there are circumstances where one property owner is required to give another property owner an easement, and that is for physical access.
uh-huh.
You can't restrict a property owner from getting at their property because you're in the way, because your property's
Yeah,
in the way. You have to grant them an easement to access their property. But you
yeah.
do not have to grant an easement to dig a hole.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't they don't have a right to shit on their property with that, but this is when the town starts fining him $100 a day until he does it. And
Ooh,
that's when
that's a lot of
he
money.
writes, yeah, that's when he writes the first check that says to the Cowards and Liars Department in the memo, which we have a
Oh
picture
yeah,
of.
I got that. Where is it? Check number one. Coming right up. And there's problems with how this is worded for one thing.
Yes. And that
For
is
those of
why
you
it was
who
sent
remember
back.
writing checks,
Yeah.
banks are very particular about how checks are written, in fact.
Yep.
So if you look at this one, it says 3351 and no dollars. No
If you
100.
Yeah, if you assume that's an ampersand, to me it kind of looks like a cursive uppercase I.
It kind of does, but it could be easily so. But 3351 is not a valid way to write that.
No, it isn't. And that
And
is
the bank
why
wouldn't
the
take it.
check,
A bank would not take
right,
that.
right, it's useless. And that's why they sent the check back,
Right.
which of course just pissed Marv off more. Um, and meanwhile, the cement plant goes ahead, is getting built, and suddenly, Heemeyer shows up with his own attorney, and he made them put it on hold while he filed, whatever it was in the court of law. Um, So he files a suit in the district court, which was later dismissed. But, and the interesting thing with that,
Yeah.
another out that he was offered before that was dismissed, Cody Dochef said, I will give you the easement if you dismiss your lawsuit against me and the city. And he refused to.
Okay, now he's just digging in like a tick.
Yeah, yeah, that was another out that he had. So, and meanwhile, again, the Dochefs are moving forward. And Heemeyer, by now with all of this, is about 150 grand into this spat with
Oh
Cody
my God.
Dochef. Yeah. Um,
Over a fucking sewer line that would have
yeah,
cost a tiny fraction of that amount
yeah.
if
And
he had
he was
just done it
offered an
right off
out.
the bat.
Yeah. Had he just done that. And even just setting that aside for a moment,
Yeah.
like I said, he was offered an out, an easy out. Um, and his girlfriend at the time said it was just getting to him, you know,
Yeah.
as we can tell with his personality. She said he was feeling defeated um, when he was inspired one day in 2001 while sitting in his hot tub. He said that God talked to him
Uh-oh.
and, and
Careful when
gave
that
him the
happens.
plan of Killdozer.
Yeah, so anytime you think God's talking to you, you might want to run that past some people that you trust.
Yeah.
Get a
Oh, yeah.
get a second and third opinion, fourth and fifth maybe.
Yeah, one of those should be preferably a doctor, too. But Heemeyer said about that day, quote, I was weeping and a peace came over me where I knew God wanted me to do it. Um, and, well, like I said,
So how old is he roughly at this point? 40-ish?
he
40 something?
is he is
50 something?
49.
Yeah, that's really late for schizophrenia to show up at that point. That's usually hits much younger.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be, although and that's again because we don't have anything about his early life. Maybe it was paranoid personality disorder
Well,
that got
he
psychotic.
definitely is acting paranoid.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Lots of things can trigger that.
Yep.
Uh, some people get paranoid when they smoke weed, for example.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they do. Most definitely. But,
Yeah, and I don't know. Can you just it's can it just kind of evolve though?
I don't know. I mean, I guess theoretically stress could make it worse.
I guess it would, if you have some foundational beliefs and stories that you like to tell yourself about how the world operates, and then you keep feeding it evidence,
Mm-hmm.
based on circumstances, oh, these guys are out to get me. Maybe that's just a throwaway comment early on, but then you keep feeding it proof, right? Oh, see, now
Yeah.
this guy's out to get me, and that guy's out to get me, and all of these guys are out to get me, and everybody's out to get me, and you just keep um, pouring evidence into that feedback loop until
Confirmation bias in overdrive.
yeah,
Yep. Very true.
that
But
could happen.
yeah, it definitely could. Heemeyer, he had a beef also with, we mentioned the Thompsons a bit. Dick Thompson was the mayor at the time
Okay.
as well. And Heemeyer, he said that the Thompsons owed him $300,000, but he didn't say what for. It's like, huh?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just sort of came out of left field.
Does that work? Can you just do that? Because I could use 300,000. I'll find somebody to pin that on.
Apparently in his world, but he said about Larry Thompson, one of the brothers, I guarantee you, Larry, I'm going to collect. And he said about all the Thompsons, and this shows that Mr. Heemeyer's a fucking bigot too. Quote, he's a Catholic, and I think they are some of the biggest cowards.
Hmm.
Yeah, frankly, fuck you,
Say that
dude.
to a nun.
Yeah, no shit. Absolutely. But this brings us to Patrick Brower, who was the publisher and editor in chief of Sky High News that
Okay.
we had talked a bit about in Granby. And Heemeyer had a beef with him because he said that Brower promised to do an article on his little business, his muffler shop.
Okay.
Um, and his quote was, he was doing everything he could to keep me from getting additional publicity. And Brower, with all of this, said that, I tried to catch him, but he was never there when I
Hmm.
stopped by. And I ended up actually giving him a $200 ad in the newspaper.
Oh,
So, yeah,
all
that's
right.
kind
So
of,
if he thinks that's you know not following through, that it really indicates how far this guy's gone off
yeah,
the deep end.
yeah, and absolutely.
What?
And then
You
we,
just gave me a free ad? Damn you.
um, this brings us to another one on the hit list, Casey Farrell, owner of Gamble's department store, who was Casey was on the town board. And Casey's crime? Supporting the concrete plant. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And man, it just goes to show more from the tapes. Heemeyer says, quote, for years, I've tried to appease Cody Docheff's misguided anger. Um, and Cody, for the record, connected with the sewer when he was building the concrete plant. It would not have cost much, as we were talking about, for Heemeyer to hook on. Um, and again, Dochef to Heemeyer, we will give you an easement for your water too and your sewer
Wow.
if you drop your lawsuit against Granby and us. And Heemeyer's reaction to that, he just hung up the phone. That was it.
And just to make that even worse than it really is, I mean, just to give you a lot of times if you want an easement for that kind of a hookup, you have to pay the landowner for it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, besides the fact that you have to dig the trench and restore the property to the way it was before without, you can't even tell you were there. You typically have to pay some cash amount for the privilege of digging over to those utilities and hooking up. So if
Mm-hmm.
they're willing to give him an easement and all he's got to
Yep.
do is drop the lawsuit, I mean, that just is not good that he refused that.
Yeah. And like we said, it was an easy out for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't do it. Oh, and another one on his hit list was the town treasurer, whom he accused of bad mouthing him to the local bank, likely because of his shit check. But no basis again of that. Oh, and on top of it, he even accused his attorney of bilking him, even though the attorney said, we should not file an appeal here, when he could have said, let's do an appeal and gotten more money.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Um,
So he's
Ye-
just being obstinate now.
yeah, basically. Oh, and on top of this, it gets even
I, I
worse.
mean, it's like he doesn't even know what he wants. He just wants to not do what they want.
Basically,
God, we
it
kind of
gets
see that in politics, don't we?
yeah, oh, absolutely. But it gets even worse here. Dochev, beyond even what he said with the lawsuits there,
Yeah.
he offered to buy Marv's property, to
Oh,
buy the whole thing from him.
just buy it out.
Yeah,
So he
he
could go
offered him.
somewhere else. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, he offered him $250,000 for it. Marv accepted, but at the last minute, he kicked it up to 375.
Oh, Jesus.
It gets even worse though. Dochev accepted the 375, then Marv kicked it up to 500.
Oh,
Dochev
yeah, yeah,
accepted
yeah.
the
This
500, and then Marv kicked it up to 1 million. And then
he
Dochev
was never
said,
going to accept. Yeah.
yeah, basically. Dochev said, fuck you on the 1 million, as far as I know.
Well,
But that
yeah,
just goes to show. Um, and this
that's
gets us into the summer of '02. Heemeyer buys his Komatsu 355D bulldozer in California. And he gets a pretty decent deal. Um, the one that I found that was in the picture that we sent
yeah.
was from Spain, and it was going about for about 77,000 euros. Which, if I get time, I will run a conversion on that. Find out what it is in dollars.
Here's the specs for that.
Yeah, yeah, those could be helpful as well. Um, and he had it delivered into Granby in July '02 in the middle of the night. They unloaded it. And he stuck a for sale sign right on the middle of the blade for the time being through the winter of '02 and into '03. And he parked it basically right on the access road that he shared with Dochev. So he parked it there. It was one resident's theory. He parked it there just to intimidate him, basically. Um, and Heemeyer, he said around this time in his tapes, I wanted these people to learn. I had no choice. What was I supposed to do?
Sorry, but bulldozers are not innately intimidating.
Yeah, yeah, that guy might have been wrong on that. Maybe looking back with a little bit of 2020 vision, but
Yeah.
um, now around this time on his own, Heemeyer shuttered and sold his muffler shop, and he also put the bulldozer up for auction, which I'm not totally sure why. Maybe it was, it goes back to the God thing, where he was trying to test God, as it were, in his deluded, paranoid, totally fucked up mind.
Uh, yeah, it doesn't work that direction. You, if one believes in God, one should understand that one does not do the testing of the deity.
Yes. In fact, the Bible is pretty clear about that
Yeah,
too, I think.
there are multitude examples of where that is attempted and fails badly.
But he said, quote, I was hoping to get caught. Um, and I couldn't get a bid on the dozer. And he ends up taking the fact that nobody bid on it as proof, or, further proof
Yeah.
that his mission is what it should be.
You know, we did a show a while back last year about some guy who said, if God didn't want me to kill people, he would have stopped me. I forget who it
Oh,
was,
oh man.
but
Yeah.
doesn't that sound familiar?
Albert Fish. I think, said that.
Might have been fish.
Yeah, I think it was Fish. But yeah, Heemeyer,
I
he
mean, it's
talks
a,
about God a lot.
it's the same kind of attitude.
Yep, it really is. It's a religious psychosis, I think. Or, like I said, maybe something like temporal lobe epilepsy, which can cause, religious visions.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh yeah, they think a lot of the Catholic saints had temporal lobe epilepsy, in
Mm.
fact. Um, but with the hard facts, we know around this time that he broke up with Trisha, and he really didn't give her a reason with that. Um, he ends up selling his property to a local trash company, and he subleases a garage. It's really a shed on the property from them. And the dozer, it just barely fits inside that shed. There was like a 1 inch clearance on one side of where he parked it and 2 inches on the other, if I remember correctly. And Heemeyer, he ends up sleeping and living in this little shed throughout most of 2003 while he's building it. Um, he has all the tools he needs in there. He even has a lift to position all these gigantic pieces of steel that he's welding together. And to get into that, the main thing that he used for armor on Killdozer
Yeah.
was 1/2 inch steel plates,
Yeah.
positioned about 2 feet apart with the lift. And in the space between them, he poured concrete.
Concrete. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
That is effective bullet stopping
oh,
material
yeah.
there for sure. 2 feet?
Yeah, 2 feet of concrete.
Jeez Louise.
And even the 50 caliber bullets that the sharpshooters were lobbing at that thing didn't do a damn thing to it. And that's a huge
I'm gonna
round.
guess he tested this.
Uh, Probably. Yeah, I mean, he probably did,
I mean,
but
he had a 50 cal, right?
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
we
we've
have
got
a
a picture.
picture of him with it, in fact. But, I mean, throughout the time that he's doing this, he has surveillance cameras outside the shed. And basically, what he's doing is synchronizing all this loud working on it with the schedule of the trash company. So he's doing most of his work at night
Gotcha.
with that. But, oh, yeah, you want to guess his favorite movie in the shed?
Uh, Something really destructive.
Vin Diesel's A Man Apart,
I don't think I've seen that.
which is apparently a revenge story. But I
Ah,
heard that, I was like, damn, at least have a little bit of taste and watch Death Wish with Charles Bronson.
right?
Like,
Taxi
fuck.
driver, something.
Yeah, Taxi Driver too. It's another good one. But the trash guys, they ended up even doing a walkthrough, an insurance walkthrough of the shed, right?
Okay.
And the dozer is under a blue tarp. And they're in there, they're talking to him, and they even see the lift. And they're like, well, Marv, what are you doing? And he had this total bullshit story concocted that a University of Minnesota professor had an engine under there that was cryogenically frozen.
Why? Why would you
To,
freeze an engine?
apparently to keep it cooler when it's running. That was his story.
Oh
Are you all
God.
right?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. I can't believe anybody
Yeah,
fell for that.
yeah, they did.
In
They
the
absolutely did.
in a region where people almost certainly have heater blocks attached to their engine blocks to keep
Yeah,
them from freezing in the winter.
yeah. They,
Oh,
they believed it, man. They walked right past it.
Jesus.
So, in fact,
Wow.
that was one thing that he kind of gloated upon, that he did not get caught.
Well,
Uh,
that is astonishing.
Yeah. He even had a dinner and beers with some people where he was discussing his plans with this. And they all thought he was joking. So it just goes to show. But there was more stress that was added on to Heemeyer during this time. His dad dies on March 31st of 2004.
Yeah.
So that is actually where that selfie of him in front of the tractor at the farm was taken.
Okay.
He returned to South Dakota for that. Um, and around this time, he had sold everything that he owned. We talked a bit about that, but he also sold like his house and everything. He transferred the money to his dad, who in turn transferred the money to his two brothers when he died.
Okay.
And basically, what that meant, it was premeditated so
So
that the city
nobody could.
couldn't go after it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing in the asshole category. Um, and he told many friends around this time that the people on his hit list will get what they deserve. So, move on to June 4th, 2004. D Day, as it were. D Day is in due day. Um, he comes bursting out of his shed with Killdozer. He welds himself in there, comes bursting out of there,
All right.
and
Welds himself inside of this dozer.
of this of this 60 to 80-ton Leviathan, basically. Oh, and he had
So
even
he's not coming out because
no,
unless he also brought in an angle grinder or some shit to get himself out. He's
yeah,
if he's welding himself in, he's not planning on getting out.
no, he isn't at all with that. That's the interior that's pictured on there
Yeah.
now. And then the 50 one of the 50 cal rifles he had mounted. But he comes bursting out of the shed in the early morning. He drives right into the concrete plant.
Oh man. So what
And
day of the week was this again?
this, oh man, I didn't write that down. I have to check. That is a good question. I mean, it was the day, I'm pretty sure, where people were at work,
June
because
4th.
one of the extant pieces of audio from this was the receptionist at the
So
trash company calling
looks like it's a
911.
Friday.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the pieces of audio was her calling 911 as she observed this. And
Yeah, it looks like a Friday.
meanwhile, what does Cody Dochef do after he drives right in there? He hops on his front end loader with a small revolver. I think it was a 38, and he starts shooting at Killdozer. But of
Yeah,
course, a
yeah, front loader.
38's not going to do dick.
No, neither is a front loader.
No, not at all.
Much
But
lighter. It is an earth moving piece of equipment, but much lighter weight. Not even counting the you know the shielding,
mhm, absolutely. But
the
yeah,
plating.
so he tries all that, and um, Heemeyer starts firing at him with the 50 cal from Killdozer.
Ooh.
So it's not like this guy wasn't trying to kill people. That is a part of the myth that gets spread. It
Oh,
was totally luck and totally incidental that no one died that day. It had nothing to do with Marvin Heemeyer. It was just pure luck that most of the 50 cal shots ricocheted off of the blade of the front loader and got embedded in it.
yeah. Not for lack of trying.
Yeah, yeah, he was certainly trying to do that. But meanwhile, other workers at the concrete plant had a pretty smart idea with it. They were trying to take steel chains, steel poles, anything they could find
Yeah.
to ram it in the tracks of Killdozer
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
try and incapacitate it. I
Right.
thought that was pretty clever, but that didn't work either. Um, so, yeah, it ended up Killdozer hits Dochev, and the front loader goes about 4 feet off the ground and lands hard, and Dochev hits his head hard on the windshield of it, and it knocks him out and concusses him pretty bad. Um, so they start going, and police start, of course, showing up. And initially, they thought that Killdozer might have been radio controlled.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
at some point he's got to be going. I should have thought of that.
yeah. And he was, but yeah, they thought that he was in one of the surrounding hills and
Oh, they don't have
controlling
that
it
kind
by
of
a
range.
radio. But also during this, there were about 4 or 5 SWAT teams from surrounding areas that were called out, and the sharpshooters are trying literally to lob bullets through the 2 by 4 inch
Oh man.
viewports that you can
Wow.
see.
Man, talk about yeah,
Precision.
yeah. While it's moving,
Yeah, while it's moving.
that's stunning. I mean, what else are you gonna do, right? You got to try.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And going back to
On
that
the
other
other
picture.
hand, why not? We just saw a picture of the cop on top. Why isn't he just leaning over and firing rounds through there?
Oh, he was.
Oh,
He was. Yeah, that guy is Under Sheriff Doug Trainer. That guy had balls of steel to get on top of that thing, in my opinion.
yeah.
And meanwhile, he's firing off all the bullets he can through it. And he even dropped a few flashbangs down the exhaust of Killdozer.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
But none of it did anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And the sharpshooters, they were having a hell of a time also because the portholes were covered with 2 sheets of half-inch Lexan, which I didn't realize what that was
Oh,
until I Googled it.
bulletproof glass.
Yep, yep, a
So,
strong polycarbonate,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not.
basically.
It's technically it's not glass. It's yeah, it's a polycarbonate that works. It's clear like glass, but yeah, it's what's called bulletproof glass.
Yep,
So no wonder.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he
no
thought of
wonder they
that
couldn't
too.
get anything through. Oh, and he also even thought of the debris on it. He had a compressed air system on Killdozer that would pump air out to clear the cameras after he ran into a building.
Man,
So yeah, he's methodical, Heemeyer.
God, if he'd put this much effort into settling the dispute, it would have been over.
Yeah, basically. Um, and he's heading into the town proper now, right?
Okay.
And he runs over a Jersey barrier that had three Colorado state troopers behind it.
Oh,
Luckily, they scattered just in time. But if they hadn't, they would have been killed. Easy. And, Heemeyer said, this is what God wanted me to do. So meanwhile, Granby is getting evacuated, right?
sure. Yeah, you don't know
And
where he's going to go next.
yeah, and you have Under Sheriff Trainer and the police officers walking by covering him as it rots its path of destruction. Um, and luckily, one weak point that they found was the AC that was on
Oh,
Killdozer, which we have a picture of the actual unit there. He had the foresight to put it on there for when he got hot.
okay.
And they were shooting down that. Um, and that may have been part of what contributed to what ultimately stopped it, but I'm not totally sure on that point. Um, yes, so the next building that he goes to and destroys is Mountain Electric, which had a member of the town board worked there, which is how they think it was connected. And then he goes to the town hall / library. And here's another proof of where this guy, the myth, is totally wrong. There were kids having a children's story hour in the library no more than 5 to 10 minutes before Killdozer destroyed it.
Yeah, it was a Friday morning.
Yeah,
Probably in
basically.
those days, school probably was out. So um,
Yeah,
this
it's
this was
June.
back in the days when June meant school was out, not hey, we got 2 months more to go, like today, Jesus. Um,
Yeah.
so why go up to the library?
Well, I
Anybody?
mean, it was the library / town hall. The
Oh,
town
okay. It was
the town
connected.
hall was on the second floor, and the library was the first floor. He also had innocent people in the basement of it too. So, and after that, he stopped Killdozer, and not totally sure why, but this is just another proof of how murderous his intent was.
Yeah.
He stops near industrial size things of propane
Oh,
that are adjacent, and he starts shooting 50 caliber incendiary rounds at
which, by the way, MythBusters proves will not ignite propane.
it. I'm pretty sure he didn't know that,
Yeah, no,
but
this was way before MythBusters.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it works in the movies.
But
It will potentially create a missile
yeah,
when
it
the
definitely
compressed
will.
gas, vents through a very tiny hole. You will create a rocket, but
Oh yeah.
it's unlikely. It's very, very. It's much more difficult to ignite that gas than just a tiny little, even an incendiary round.
Wow. I mean, it's just lucky that none of the bullets penetrated.
Yeah.
Most of them, in fact, were blocked by his armor, which a piece of it was like falling down.
Ah,
Um, if they had exploded, there was a senior citizen center nearby, and
Jesus.
you had hundreds of people would have died. Not to mention the private residences that were nearby. Basically, anyone within a half a mile of that would have been killed or greatly hurt.
Well, just even without the flame, just the release of the pressure. I mean, it's basically yeah, it becomes a missile. It could go anywhere under great force.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the shockwave is what will kill a lot of people.
Well, in the tank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The
The
tank will
shrapnel.
the tank will travel. It will fly like a missile.
Yeah. Yeah, and keep in mind, dear listener, we're not talking about a propane tank on your barbecue grill.
No, no, no,
We're
no.
talking about industrial sized
Yeah,
propane.
probably hundreds of gallons.
Yes. But I guess he just got tired of doing that and he started driving away. And his next target was Sky High News, which Mr. Browder was in the building with his oldest child at the time. Luckily, they got out before he went in.
Did they like see him coming or something?
Yes.
I mean, this is a small town. They had to been the whole town had to been just deafening with sirens, right?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And they had issued the order to evacuate. And
Yeah.
I think by now a lot of the town leaders also realized who he was targeting, most likely.
Right. Pattern.
So, yeah, yeah,
Well, and yeah, go after the guy who gave you a free ad because he couldn't find you to do an interview.
yeah. Basically, that's what this piece of shit did. I
Yeah.
mean, but from there, he heads off towards Gamble's department store. But we actually have a picture of this. There's a county scraper that they got from their local dump
Yeah,
that blocked,
that's a big piece of machinery.
yeah, that tried to block his path.
It's not tracked though,
Yeah.
and the center of gravity is high compared to a dozer.
Or
So
no, my apologies. It wasn't Gamble's he went to yet. It
oh,
was the Thompson residence, the
oh,
residence of Dick Thompson. Now, the Thompsons weren't in, but the mother, who was in her, I believe, her 80s at the time, was there. And
oh
she
hell.
was napping for about half an hour. And luckily, she got out as well before he bulldozed the house. We have pictures of that too. It's the only house that I included with it. So yeah, he
It's in
tried.
the rotation here.
So yeah, he tried killing another senior citizen that didn't do anything to him. And then from there is when he goes to Gamble's. He bulldozed that, and by that time, they started seeing this huge amount of white smoke billowing from it. And they figured it had to be a problem where he lost all his antifreeze or
There's the
his radiator tapped out.
there's the picture of the house.
Yeah, yep, that's it. Looks like a tornado hit it.
Yep.
But with the problem with the radiator, Killdozer ended up getting stuck inside Gamble's.
Oh, okay.
And that is where it ultimately ended. The police backed off for a while, though, because they didn't know what he was going to do, you know?
Sure.
And
Well,
then they,
and then how you gonna get in? There's no
yeah,
doors.
exactly. That was the other problem. But they finally decided it was safe after they heard a gunshot from the inside.
Mm.
That's where Marvin Heemeyer swallowed the barrel of his 357, blew his brains out.
Because God
Yeah,
wanted him to.
he probably thought so. He's a
Well,
sick,
I mean
sick man.
that was his only out. He didn't give himself any other alternative.
Yeah, and either that or do the honorable thing and go to prison. But yeah, in the police, the way that they ended up getting in, they tried three different localized explosive charges,
Hmm.
and none of them worked. So they ended up just bringing out an oxyacetylene torch
Yeah,
and
that's
cutting their way in.
kind of what I figured they'd have to do.
Yep.
But you got to find
Eh,
a place where there's no concrete, or otherwise you got to jackhammer into the next layer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But they ended up finding in there a 50 caliber rifle, two assault rifles, and the 357 he used to kill himself. Um, and he's in another quote from him, quote, "God built me for this job."
Well, I mean, something did.
Yeah, he was nuts. It's
Uh,
totally beyond me how they basically turned him into a saint in some quarters.
right. Yeah, and um, partly there's room for that because he didn't ultimately kill anybody or even really hurt anybody badly.
Yeah,
Uh, he he only quote hurt property, and so it's easy to bend the story to some kind of, I don't know, not Robin Hood, but some kind of avenging angel kind of story.
yeah, I mean, they could, but that also requires leaving out the fact that it wasn't for lack of trying.
Right, which
So,
is not a, I mean, if that's the story you want to tell, inconvenient facts can just be set aside.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. But they ended up actually scrapping Killdozer. There were some people who wanted to turn it into a museum piece.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a smart move. But then, FBI sold off Kaczynski's shack.
This is true. They did. I mean, there is a market for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other really interesting thing about this case, there was a similar case 6 years earlier, also in the Colorado Rockies. And this was a man by the name of Thomas Leask in Alma, Colorado, which is about an hour and 57 minutes south southwest of Granby, which I'll just give you the highlights of this one.
Was this another dozer?
Yes,
Okay.
it was. He was a part time snowplow driver. He ends up shooting Alma's mayor, Willie Morrison, who was a welder turned promising artist. He got life plus 27 years, but 2 years of legal wrangling over whether he should even be allowed to enter a guilty plea, which he wanted to do from day one. Leask admitted to the murder and the rampage that destroyed 4 buildings in the town on a stolen military bulldozer,
Ah,
where he got the town hall fire department and the water department. And the water actually ran out of there after that, causing ice, really bad ice all over the town.
yeah.
But Leask's public defender, Nicholas Serro, fought his client for those 2 years over an insanity plea, which he wanted to enter for him, but
Hmm.
he refused to. And the judge
How does
ended.
that go on for 2 years, for fuck's sakes?
Good question, because this guy was just a public defender, too. The
Yeah.
judge
It-
allowed the
I mean,
guilty plea.
for crying out loud, it- how does a judge even put up with that shit? I mean, it's like, how do you plead? He goes, I want to plead guilty. And the lawyer goes, no, 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 he wants to plead insanity. And then the judge goes, you got 30 seconds, make up your mind. Lawyer, he says he's guilty. He wants to do guilty. You got to go with what your client says. The end.
Yeah. I
This is
mean,
not a
ultimately,
2 year battle.
no, it isn't. And ultimately, the judge allowed the guilty plea. and Lucero quit. The quote from him was, "Contrary to anything I can in good conscience participate in." And now Leask, another interesting tidbit to this, he shot the mayor during an AA meeting. So make of that
Ah.
what you will. Yeah, yeah, that was 6 years before Killdozer.
And then there
Something
was the
weird
guy who
going on
stole
with that.
the National Guard tank and went on a rampage, tearing
Yep,
shit up.
in
He
San Diego, I believe.
that that son of a bitch did some spectacular damage to vehicles.
That he did.
And he ended up getting caught on the Jersey barrier, if I remember right.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. That was some spectacular video too
Oh,
to
it
watch.
was, it was.
Man,
I mean,
speaking.
I would really hate it if he got one of my cars, but it was that was really something.
Oh yeah. Oh, and speaking of video, I have some raw news video posted on our Facebook page of Killdozer.
Okay, cool.
People to go and visit. That address again is facebook.com/Real Monsters Podcast. So,
All kinds of goodies there.
yep. And I'm going to also put his audio on there. Because the Sky News, the newspaper that he destroyed, actually put it up on their page, the full tapes about
Awesome.
it. So we will go ahead and do that too. But
All
yeah,
right.
don't believe the hero bullshit as far
Yeah,
as this guy goes.
there's always another side to things. There's always
Yep.
at least one other side. Sometimes there's three or four.
Yeah, there
Oh,
definitely is.
Cecilia has a question. How many years apart were these incidents of killdozers?
The first one, the one in Alma, Colorado that we talked about second was in 1998, and then Killdozer proper in Granby, Colorado was in 2004.
So
Um,
6 years.
yes, 6 years. Oh, and another thing I'm going to be putting on our profile if you want to watch it, there is a 1974, kid you not, made for TV movie called Killdozer that had that has nothing to do with Killdozer, Colorado, the one we've been talking
Yeah.
about. But I found a copy of it on YouTube that you can watch for free. So enjoy that bit of cheesy B movie goodness.
So we got the book cover that
Yep.
inspired the movie that did not inspire the real life events.
Yes. Tread is the documentary about it.
And is it pretty accurate? Have you seen it?
It is. I actually watched it yesterday.
Cool.
Um, it can be had for 99 cents on Amazon Prime, so I would recommend it too. But I will be putting Killdozer the B movie up as well. So,
If you notice, the books is listed as science fiction, so it's more like what was that Stephen King killer car story?
oh yeah, what the hell's it?
Christine,
Maximum Overdrive. Oh, that was the one where all the vehicles was Maximum Overdrive. Yeah,
Christine.
Christine is the one you were thinking
Yeah.
of. Yep,
Okay. And that's the story of Killdozer.
it is the real story of
The real
Killdozer.
story of Killdozer. Okay, that was great. That was a lot of fun.
That was most definitely.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.